Howdy, howdy, howdy. It is Bronze and Modern Gods. I'm John.
I'm Richard.
Welcome, everybody. You know how we do here. Unless you're new here, then let me give you a little rundown. We're going to have our hot book of the week. We have viewer mail today. Lots to talk about. Your letters, your emails, your DMs. We've got our underrated books of the week and the 25-year rule where we travel back in time to 1997. But first, a gentle reminder, no sponsor this week, but ourselves. We're our own sponsor, Richard. Follow us at Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods. Won't you please? And if you like this video, Richard, what should they do with their index finger and their mouse?
They should take the index finger, press on the button to the left on the subscribe button, and we would really, really appreciate it.
And hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Surprise! That way you're not missing a thing. Before we get started, today we're recording on Sunday, November 13th. Can you believe it's halfway through November already, number one? I mean, dear Lord, what's happening? Number two, I went to a show today, Richard, Near Mint Sundays, which is in Anacrime, California.
I'm so jealous of you and your California show.
I'm telling you, this was a good show. It is put on by a very talented gentleman who is doing the show for the collectors. There's not a lot of dealers there. It's a lot of collectors, a lot of people from Instagram you'll know and recognize. Doing the dad thing was there. Gosh, so many people came up and said hi Armando, hi Rick. I'm trying to remember everybody. I saw Azor's Tiger, Eric, haven't seen him in months. So first off, thanks for stopping me. If you see me at a show, please stop me and say hi, introduce yourself. I love it. I love talking to all of you guys. But I have a little show and tell. I had bought some stuff today and I thought, why not have a little show and tell, right?
Right. And he has not shown me any of this yet.
So. Yes, I saved this. I want Richard's real reaction. All right, here's the first one, Richard. I'm walking the show floor and I see this. And you know, I have that eye where I can recognize a cover from just like,
oh yeah,
like, you know, 1/8 of it showing. And I saw this and I had to grab it. It is The Strange World of Your Dreams, number 4. This is a Jack Kirby, Joe Simon book from 1954, I believe, when they had their own
golden age format.
Yeah. And this is the last issue, and it's a super tough book. I've never seen a number 4. I've owned a nice number 1 and 2. I've had a number 3. I've never had a number 4. And a guy had this. It's got a spine split, but it's split to both staples. So the staples are attached to the cover, but it's split everywhere else just about. So I'm not opening it up. I'm being very gingerly with it. But it's really good. Great price. I thought that was a cool pickup.
So what do you think grade-wise?
Oh, gosh. 1.8, 2. Because the cover's attached, but it's not. If that makes any sense. It's one of those things where I guess it depends on the grader and how much caffeine they had. And or loving the night before. This is a book that you came up with. You'll recognize immediately. I think this is before your sabbatical from comics in the mid-90s. I think this just came in under the wire, but I don't know if you collected it. It is Harbinger number 1.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is that the pink?
This is the regular edition, complete with the coupon. The coupon is intact. It is, after I press it, it will be a 9.8 all day long.
Nice.
It is. They were asking $199 for it. I hammered them all the way down to $180. But I realized I don't have a Harbinger 1.
Really?
I don't.
Valiant is one of your favorite publishers. I'm surprised you don't have
the
it.
original, the OG Valiant with Jim Shooter in charge. Absolutely. I love these books the first 2 years. And I didn't have a Harbinger 1 after having all those Harbinger 1s back in the day. I think I've told that story on this podcast where I traded them for
Congratulations.
I traded them for an Avengers 4, which I think was the better deal. But yes, I got a Harbinger number 1. And then I saw this other book and I thought, I went back and forth. I went to the guy a couple times. I kept kicking the tires and I was like, I can't spend that money. I can't spend that money right now. I can't do it. And then I thought, you know what? It's the only one I've ever seen in person. And when I walked back the third time, someone was looking at it. They had it down off the wall. And I think it was actually our friend Javits, Java, Hot Java. And sorry, Javits. I think I bought your book that you were looking for, but I'm going to leave you on camera here for this one.
Oh, that is awesome.
It is
That
Love and
awesome.
Rockets #1, the 1981 self-published black and white cover version of Love and Rockets #1. The one you don't want. You don't want this one, right?
I don't. I want the Fantagraphics one.
I do
The one
too.
with the lineup on the cover. That's what I want.
I do too, but I saw this and I was like,
No.
I kind of had to have it, you know?
That's a great pickup. I mean, I don't have that book either. I would love to have it in the collection. That looks like a really clean copy too.
It is. Structurally, it's a 9.4 or better. Nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of that newsprint cover where there's dirt around it. I'm going to try to take an absorbing sponge and see what happens. Hopefully I don't ruin the book. Let's find out together, everyone. But yeah, I've never physically seen one before.
I've not seen one before in person. I've seen them on eBay, and
Right.
typically on eBay they're graded. So
apparently there are there are counterfeit ones out there that are unstapled, and they kind of try to sell the fact that it's unstapled as like, you know, a selling point. But the dealer was a nice guy. He was pretty firm on the price. I think I overpaid, frankly. I do think I overpaid a bit. He was asking $850. I got it for $800. I felt bad paying $800 still, but then I think I got caught up in the FOMO when someone else was looking at it, and I was like, if I don't grab that, you know. And then of course, I don't take Venmo or PayPal or Zelle. I only take cash. So then I had to get in the car, find an ATM, because this is a community center park, you know, place. There's no ATM there. I had to do that whole thing, but it's here. It's home. I've got it.
You know, I'm a firm believer of, you know, if it's in front of you and you think you're never going to see one again, buy it, because you may not see it again.
So those were what I picked up today. And then I also, before we get started on the main topics and everything, I have a follow-up. During our interview with former DC president and publisher Paul Levitz, we were talking about books that didn't make it, you know, that were not big sellers, stuff like Angel Love. And he mentioned that the lowest selling DC comic book in history on the newsstand was a book called Gem, Son of Saturn by Greg Potter and Gene Colan, where only 9% sell through. So 91% of the newsstand copies that were printed were returned. And I thought, I could not get that out of my head because it was such a dumb John-like stat to remember, that I just enjoyed it so much that I thought, okay, so that probably means that it was a 12-issue miniseries. So the last issue is probably the scarcest, right?
Right.
The last issue of the newsstand. So I went on to eBay and I got the last issue as a newsstand.
No. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Not bad. And then I couldn't stop. I got the last issue as a newsstand with a Mark Jewelers insert.
Okay.
Okay. And so I couldn't stop. So here is the newsstand variant, Canadian price variant. If you can see the 95 cents.
Yeah.
So if the newsstand version is scarce, I think I'm covered. I have all three newsstand versions with everything.
Congratulations. You have the same sickness I have in being a completionist.
Total cost via eBay for everything, including shipping, $28 for all three.
That's awesome.
So I am ready for that Gem, Son of Saturn movie when it's announced.
You keep waiting for that.
I will have the rarest versions of the last issue. All right, let's get things officially started with our hot book of the week. Richard, what is it?
Our hot book this week is Amazing Spider-Man number 10 from 2015. This is the first appearance of Spider-Punk.
Oh, God, that's so stupid. Sorry, I'm going to be Abe Simpson yelling at a cloud right now. Go on.
Yeah, it's like Spider-Man with a mohawk and a guitar.
Well,
Several toys of.
Do you know who
Pardon?
it is? You know who it is in the Spider-Verse? Who Spider-Punk is? Do you know
No.
Hobie Brown?
Yeah. Okay.
It's Hobie Brown. You know.
Okay.
Yeah. Which okay. I have a real problem with all these multiple Earth Spider-Men, especially that Miles Morales character.
Yeah, that guy.
Oh, he's
everywhere.
He's the worst. All right, go on.
Several toys have hit the store shelves right now, spoiling that Spider-Punk will be appearing in the upcoming Spider-Verse movie. I don't know which one. There's 2 Spider-Verse movies coming. I don't know if he's a part of the first or the second, but he will be appearing.
I thought this book was more expensive than it really is. I went to go look and I was like, okay, I'm looking at the right Spider-Man number 10, right? I like triple checked it. Everyone, if I'm wrong, please come at me in the comments. But the last sale for a CGC 9.8 was $232. The 90-day average for a 9.8 is $235, so it's right in there. Did you not think this was a more expensive book than that? Or am I thinking of Silk?
This book hit a peak when rumors about Spider-Punk came out last year, but I don't think it ever peaked much higher than $300. So
okay,
no, I think this has always been in the affordable range.
All right. Well, one that's not is the Spider-Verse Delotto variant. There it is again, that Delotto guy with his variants. The last GPA sale for CGC 9.8 for that Delotto variant is $600. That 90-day trend on that one is $501. So that is moving up. I don't know. Does it bug you as much as it bugs me? It really hits all of my grumpy old man buttons.
Delotto just has a habit of coming out with these high ratio, variant covers that just explode. I mean, it's like he has that same kind of staying power that Adam Hughes has, or any of the other, A-tier artists. So,
I meant Spider-Punk in general. Isn't that?
Oh, Spider-Punk. Oh,
the character.
Delotto
does not hit my grumpy old man buttons.
Okay. I don't know. I have a hard time being hypocritical because I'm a huge fan of.
But there's a difference between Miles Morales and Silk. It's like those are characters, right? Whereas Spider-Punk is like a thing. Like, oh, he's punk, so he's Spider-Punk. It's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, every example I come up with, there is one. I was like, if they decided there was an anime Spider-Man, there is. There's a giant robot Spider-Man. I don't know.
I don't know. I think they're trying for variety, and one of the things that the multiverse gives them, the Spider-Verse gives them, is the ability to be creative and just not have any kind of restrictions as to what they do. I think maybe this is not as creative as they could have gotten, to your point, but it is, a variant that we'll see how popular it is when the movie comes out.
Can't he just be the Prowler? Can't we just have him as the Prowler like he used to be? Why do things have to change? Everything stays static. Whatever. All right, time for our regular viewer mail segment. You've got mail. Richard, you are going to start off with a little mea culpa, are you not?
A little bit of crow. The last episode, I was talking about an Adam Hughes variant for Legionnaires that had 3 characters, one of them a female, and she was facing away from the camera and looking over her shoulder, and I called her Saturn Girl because I am pre-programmed to call any female in the Legion Saturn Girl. It's actually Dream Girl. It is not Saturn Girl. So I appreciate those who came forward to correct me. I appreciate very much the fact checking. It is Dream Girl on the cover.
Particularly, thank you, SoccerVids99, for being the first one to call that out.
Absolutely. SoccerVids, thank you so much. And I will look to you all to help keep me in check in the future, too.
Are you sure it's not Peach Girl?
There is an aspect of Peach in there. Yes, I agree, but it is Dream Girl.
Juicy. My first piece of viewer mail, we everyone seemed to really enjoy the Micronauts talk from last week, where we brought up the Micronauts and went down memory lane a bit there. And Timothy Markin wrote, actually, guys, Micronauts was licensed from Mego. Correct. As a 12-year-old kid, I actually found Bug's Dick kind of charming. I bought that Bug One Shot when it was new and pulled it out of my collection recently during another culling of unwanted issues, but you've convinced me to keep it. Contemplating getting rid of part of my complete runs of both Micronauts and ROM as well. Timothy, a few things here. Let's go backwards from the most recent thing I just read. Do not get rid of your Micronauts and ROM. Don't do that. They're never going to be reprinted. There's so many rights issues. Don't do that. Keep those. Those are really good runs of just some classic Marvel Bronze Age storytelling and solid art and just great memories. I mean, if space is an issue, you know, put them
Send it to John.
Yeah, send them to me. I'll take care of them for you. I know that I mentioned Hasbro had a movie option. Tim, you may not be aware, Hasbro acquired the Micronauts in 2009. That's why I mentioned Hasbro. Absolutely knew that they were a Mego product. I had them as a kid. Richard had them as a kid. Loved those Mego figures, the full-size ones with the fabric costumes and the stickers for the emblems and the boots that you would lose after 3 weeks of owning it after Christmas. Those boots would not survive the month of January before the vacuum cleaner sucked them up or something. But thank you for the check, Timothy. What do you have next, Richard?
My next piece is from Bat227.
Good issue. Good classic cover.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of DC, DC is cheap for a reason. If it ain't Batman, most people don't want it.
Oh, shots fired.
It is kind of shots fired. I don't know if it's cheap for a reason. I think we live in a world of the MCU right now, and the MCU obviously is driving a lot of value in the market, and because of that, the focus is on Marvel titles. So you got Spider-Man, you've got X-Men, you've got Avengers, and all this is driving the tempo of the market. But DC is still there. You mentioned Batman, but there's still strength in Superman as properties. There's still the Titan series was very good. There's a lot of potential in the DC lineup. Maybe not as much today as Marvel, and that's just because again the MCU is driving the industry. But if you make a long-term play, and I try to do that, I try to focus on a lot of things. The short-term gains that you can make, but also the long-term plays. DC is due for more attention and more recognition at some point in the future. It may be after Phase 6 or, sometime in the future after the MCU kind of loses steam. But there's just so much potential in the catalog for DC. And it's so, in my opinion, undervalued. So many different books. Now's a great time to pick these things up. First appearances of characters while they're still affordable before they become, the ultimate Fallout 4s when movies are announced and the IP heats up. So yeah, it's cheap now, and I think that's a good thing because it gives you an opportunity to buy books that aren't astronomically priced, like you're looking at Avengers books right now.
Bat227, you are obviously a DC fan because of your name. I agree with you. I think modern-wise, DC has really just kind of pared their publishing line down to anything Batman-related and maybe Superman or Super Twink. The other... I just did that to make Richard laugh. But I will counter you. I was at that show today, like I said, and I had 3 people come up to me, ask me about DC Comics. Do you think it's a time? Do you think it's time to buy? And I talked to a few dealers. Think about what sells on these show walls when you see a dealer's wall. New Teen Titans #2. First Deathstroke. Always going to sell. Right. DC Comics Presents #26. First New Teen Titans. Always going to sell. I think we look at things that were DC movie spec, like Darkseid, Jimmy Olsen 130, came and went. Big pop, then it's gone. You've got these guys in charge now of the DC movie cinematic universe. Look what's happening with Lobo this week. All the rumors about Lobo and Omega Men #3 is, that book is up, it's down, it's a roller coaster, that book. So I think, if you're smart, get in there. James at Mindhunter, I bet if he came on here right now, he could tell you about 10 to 15 DC books that are super cheap around you should buy. Booster Gold #1, Blue Devil #1, stuff like that. And I was out there today at a show and they were cheap. And I was eyeballing them if I didn't have them already. I already have a Booster Gold #1 9.8. I don't need one. I bought it at the height of the market for almost $400. But I have it. So I don't think it is a hard and fast rule that DCs are cheap for a reason. They're cheap for a reason now. I don't know if this comment is going to age well, Bat227. So we'll check back with you in a year. My next piece of viewer mail is in reference to the Comic Book Pressing 101 video that I did a couple years ago. Still our most popular video by far. Still the most comments we get on a monthly basis. It still generates a lot of activity. John Ev Demon, I'm going to emphasize the demon, you'll see why, writes, "This kind of crap is one of the reasons I got out of collecting comics. What is the point of collecting a comic if you could never open it and read it? When I was younger," yes, he literally wrote that. "When I was younger, I loved going back into my older collection and opening up and reading older issues. This is impossible when you slab your books." John, I'm teasing you a bit. I don't, of course I mean to. I'm a grumpy old man too, John. I feel you. But this is like literally Abe Simpson yelling at a cloud. It's happening, whether we want to admit it or not. Slabbing is here to stay. It's 20 plus years. We're going on 25 years of slabbing books. No, this is not a transition to the 25-year rule yet. And John, I feel you. But you're making it sound like because a book is slabbed that you can never, ever, ever read it again. These books are reprinted in every format possible. Omnibuses, trade paperbacks, facsimile editions, digital editions. But I like the smell of the newsprint and I like the ads. Me too. That's why, there's gray market scans out there with the ads included. You can't smell them. Find an old comic book, open it up, lay it next to you by your iPad and read it. I'm being very facetious, John. I do appreciate you coming and watching the video and leaving a comment. But I hate to say it, but the Earth spins. It continues to spin, and I feel you, but I don't agree with you.
It's the collector market. When comic books were simply for reading, you didn't have a need to slap them. You didn't have a need to protect them and to quantify the quality of the book. But as soon as it became collector's item, just like baseball cards before it, Magic cards since, there is a need to protect the book, which is what the slabbing does, but also again to quantify it. Is it a 9.8? Is it an 8.0? How do I compare this book to other books? That's the same title.
Good point. I mean, John, you're old school like me. How many times did you order something from the mail from a Robert Bell or Mile High Comics or some other place in a comic book ad, and it said it was in fine condition, and you paid your $6 and you get the book and it's a piece of toilet paper? Who graded this book? This kind of eliminates that.
Yeah. And it also protects it, and so that it stays at whatever grade that it was put at. I've gotten books in the mail that have suffered from the shipping process that would not have suffered if they had been slabbed. So yeah, as John says, this is a part of the hobby now, because the hobby is bigger than just people who want to read books. It's about people who want to collect and trade and sell and buy. It's a market. And because of that, we have to live with the fact that these books are slabbed. And like John says, I don't see it changing at any time in the future.
And John Evdeman, I would say you're not alone. I again, to refer to the show I was at today, lots of unslabbed golden age out there on people's racks. You're not the only one that wants to keep the books free from their plastic prisons. So I don't know, why would you stop collecting because other people are slabbing? Who cares what they're doing? Buy what you like and do you, man. It's awesome. Richard, what is your next?
Ultimately, that's right. It's your collection.
Do it.
My next.
I see this guy's name in the notes.
Yeah,
Go on.
Okay, his name is Rumple Foreskin. Didn't notice that until just this minute.
Let's peel back his comment.
This is talking about signing. We had a comment about someone who wanted to get a book signed and was asking which book to get signed. And his comment is, I can't imagine why anyone would want to ruin a book by having an actor sign it. Just like we talked about previously, it's your collection, you do you. This is something that is, it depends on the collector. If the collector values the artist or the writer or the penciler or the inker, it goes pretty deep. Yeah, it's your collection. You do what you want. If you want to have an artist or an actor signature on the book because it's important to you and that's what you want, do it. Don't worry about what other people think because ultimately it's your collection. And if it makes you happy, I have books signed by Chris Claremont, for example. I'm a huge Chris Claremont fan. The fact that he actually touched that book and put his signature on it.
It's the hand of God. I do have to say, though, I'm going to completely contradict what I just said in the last piece of viewer mail. Rumple Foreskin. I agree with you. But I also get angry when I see people have Stan Lee sign books that he had nothing to do with. It makes me. But this is a different generation that grew up on the MCU now. I mean, we're 20 years into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Hugh Jackman is Wolverine to them. So I get it. I don't like it either, but I get it.
Yeah. I go back and forth. Most books I do not have signed, but there are some books that, if I could get Frank Miller to sign Dark Knight, for example, I would do that in a heartbeat because that's an important book to me and he's an important writer.
Just don't have him do a remark these days.
No, I hate remarks. I don't like remarks. Stan Sakai does nice remarks. Other than that, I don't think I really care.
My final piece of viewer mail is from our good friend of the show and fellow veteran. Happy late belated Veterans Day, Dollar Bin Dude. If you ever wondered what a sci-fi movie starring Clint Eastwood would be like, read Roachmill. That is a great description, Dollar Bin Dude. Another title I'm constantly pulling from the dollar bins. Yes, Roachmill. Finally, somebody gave us props. I did have someone on the side, tell me they loved Roachmill as well. So that's a couple of Roachmill fans out there besides myself. Thank you both.
All three of you can form a club.
I know, the Roachmill Appreciation Society. We call it Ross. But yeah, love Roachmill. Didn't see any today at the show. Thought I was going to see lots of issue 1s up on the wall because of our position as very important influencers. That's a joke.
It's going to take us a long time to be important.
That is a joke, everybody. That is a joke.
Maybe it's going to take us all of 25 years.
Is that a transition, my good friend Richard, to the 25-year rule? Look at you picking up the slack, helping out.
I got to do it every now and then.
You even picked the book today.
I did. I actually picked this book last week, but you had another pick, and so I got bummed. But my pick this week is Cartoon Network Presents #1.
Wow.
This begins a series of one-offs of popular cartoons of the day. Things like Dexter's Laboratory, Space Ghost, Dial M for Monkey, Cow and Chicken. This is great. And, if you grew up in the 90s and you had Cartoon Network, let's put it this way. If you're a kid in the 90s, you had Cartoon Network because this was the replacement for Saturday morning cartoons from when John and I were growing up.
Yeah.
All these really great inventive shows that I don't, cartoons that got to a point where they were very formulaic. And they are even more so today, in my opinion. But there's just some great shows on there, and these are comic book versions of those shows, and I look at it as being, this is the height of Network's creativity in these stories, and the children of our age, John and our age, we bought Gold Key books. We bought the first Scooby Doo, or
those Whitmans and those Charltons.
Well, yeah, the Whitman books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are now getting to be very, very valuable because there is that nostalgia side.
I saw Scooby Doo #1 Gold Key today at that show, 5.0 slab for $15.99. That is $1,599.
So, potentially this book, these books can go in value. The #1 issue here features Dexter's Lab. There is the #1. There is the A cover for it, and then there's a premium platinum edition, which I did not.
I never knew that. Do we know if that it was an incentive? It was a one per store, a retailer summit kind of thing?
I have no idea. The only reason I know that it exists is my comic book shop had a listing for it. It's not on CGC census. There is no copies there, so obviously there's nothing on GPA. But there's only 7 books total on the CGC census for #1. 4 of them are 9.8. So this is a tough book to come by graded. The last 9.8 sale was $223 for this book.
Not too
so
shabby.
Somebody values it.
Yeah.
And if you come across this book in, dollar bins, because I just don't see most people hunting for this. This is I think a good pickup, given that there's so few of the books out there graded. Direct copies, it looks like there's 10,440 direct copies of this book. We have no good idea of the newsstands because they can also be returned.
Oh yeah,
so
I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't expect it to be maybe half that number, so maybe 15,000 total.
Right, and given people's lack of interest, apparently, since it's only 7 of it slab. If you come across this book in a dollar bin, pick it up because it may be a gold, a hidden piece of treasure that you find value in the future.
That is really interesting you picked this because we do, just so you guys know, a little behind the scenes, how the sausage is made. We make our notes separately from different parts of the country. Richard is in Ohio. I'm in California. We start a Google Doc and we just kind of add notes. And I had no idea you were picking this, which is a great segue into my underrated book of the week because you mentioned him as part of the Cartoon Network, and mine is Space Ghost #1, the 1987 Comico, the debate continues, one-shot. This was a square-bound one-shot in the, quote, Dark Knight format, as they called it in 1987, by a super talented team of Mark Evanier and Steve Rude. I almost said Mark's name right. Mark Evanier and Steve Rude. There you go. It would be rude of me to mispronounce his name. Steve Rude. Let's talk about the gorgeous art of Steve Rude for just 10 seconds, shall we? Oh my God, it's so great. And Steve Rude is the best. He has a Jack Kirby influence, an Alex Toth influence. It's just awesome. Love me some Steve Rude. Okay, there you go. This book had a $3.50 cover price when it came out in 1987. Richard, $3.50.
That's pretty steep for a book in 87.
Right. So that kept the orders down. The only data I could find for orders, historical data, was Capital City Distribution, which is one of the big 3 distributors back in 1987. There was Diamond, there was Capital City, and then another one that I'm blanking on, Pacific. No, I think Pacific was out of business by this point. But Capital City only had less than 2,000 copies of this book ordered. So let's say all 3 distributors had the same amount. You're looking at under 10,000 copies of this book out there. The 90-day GPA average for a CGC 9.8 is $150. I thought of this book today because I was at that Near Mint Sundays comic book convention, and our mutual friend Forrest there in Ohio is a big Space Ghost fan. So I texted him, "Hey, there's a Space Ghost #1 for $25. You want it?" And he said, "I have one." And yes, I do.
Yeah, already owning a book is not something that stops Forrest very
It
often.
is not. So he got that. And then the guy I bought it from, I wish I remembered his name. I apologize because he was very nice. He said, "Hey, I also have the Comico/Comico solicitation for this book that went to retailers back in the day." And he threw that in as well. So that's a little curio for Forrest. So Space Ghost #1, people love them some Space Ghost still. He's just such an iconic looking character, just so clean and neat.
Okay, I love Space Ghost. I despise Space Ghost Coast to Coast. So,
Well, this was a serious take on Space
right,
Ghost.
right.
So, no interviewing of Amy Sedaris, and yeah, no Brack being,
Who would have
not.
thought that would be a thing? You know?
It was cheap. I mean, you look at it, it was a cheap show to make, no budget. That and Harvey Birdman, attorney at law,
Yeah.
just repurpose the old animation, put some new voiceover on it, and there you and Bob's your uncle. I remember when this book came out, I was the manager of Baker's Meats and Comics in Lorain, Ohio, and we got a stack of this book in, and they flew out. It was kind of a hot book at the time. I think anything that was prestige format was a hot book.
Mhm.
Green Arrow, Longbow Hunters. I mean, it was such a new high-end format that people were just kind of a little more fascinated with the format. You had things like Nick Fury versus Shield in this format, The Pit
Oh yeah.
in this format. People
Are
bought it.
you saying Dark Knight started the format? Was that the first of this particular size?
I don't know if they're the very first. I know it was the first hugely successful run because it was this. If you look at it, you look at that format, it's the same exact thing as the graphic novels that were coming out. It's just
Mhm.
in regular comic book size. You had the glue binding, you had the super glossy paper stock, you had the stiff cardboard cover with the extra gloss on it. Easy, just trim it, charge $3 less unless you're Comico or Comico, and there you go.
Yeah.
What's your underrated book this week?
My underrated book this week is Uncanny X-Men number 193. This is the first appearance of Firestar in continuity. She first appeared in.
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends #1.
Thank you. It was in my notes and I deleted it and I was afraid I was going to forget it.
That's why
Yes,
I'm
as John
here.
said, she premiered in a Saturday morning cartoon. But this is her first appearance in Marvel continuity proper. But it's also the first appearance of Warpath in costume. It's the first appearance of the Hellions, the super team. So there's, it's a multifaceted first.
Triple key.
Uh, yeah,
And
Firestar was popular in the '90s of that TV show. She was in several teams, including X-Men, Hellions, Avengers, and I think she's a great pick.
how
Uh,
dare you forget the New Warriors?
the New
The
Warriors, yes.
nerve, my friend.
I'm also a huge fan of Firestar. A lot of that though comes because of Art Adams' gorgeous cover that he did for Young Allies #6 of her.
We all know, Richard.
Yeah, that's kind of a trope for me, isn't it? This book, the 12, it's to me it's affordable. 12 months average is $116. The last sale this month was for $66. There's 604 9.8s on the census out of a total of 1,349 books. So it's not overly collected, but I think there's some value here. I think if Marvel's looking for low hanging fruit for after their new upcoming X-Men cartoon, I think this is a character that could be in the second series and then find her way in live action. Either way, it's a great character. I think there's value here, and at the prices that they're being offered right now, I think it's a steal.
Kind of near the end, the last gasp of classic X-Men stories, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, after this, you had Magneto turning good, joining the team and leading the New Mutants. What? Remember this guy just 50 issues ago killed an entire submarine full of Russian soldiers for no reason. Yeah, you've read. I know you guys always on me to read the Hickman run. He read the Hickman run. Has X-Men gone so far off the path that we could never ever imagine it going back to being a school?
I think
in Westchester, New York.
Mutants in general have changed from being I don't want to say simple, but less politically complex. So now, mutants in general are a threat to humanity and have been treated as such in the current comics. And they've changed their tunes from coexistence to, fighting back. I don't know if we could ever get back to that age of innocence when you had, 10 quirky kids that came to learn with Professor X, because that world doesn't exist anymore.
I say it because look at how simple this log line is for this story. Okay. The Xavier School has a new division for younger mutants in high school age. They have a little high school for mutants. The White Queen starts a rival high school for the same age group. They don't know they're evil. They don't know they're being used or manipulated. They're called the Hellions. And then they all fight. It's a classic high school rivalry. Yeah. And you can't have a simple story like that anymore.
You can't.
It seems
because
sad.
It's all politically charged. And I don't know if comic fans want something as simple as that. Comic books reflect what the fans want.
Let's forget the fans. The fans are, whether we want to admit it or not, 35 plus age. They've seen it all. They've done it all. If you were making an X-Men movie and you were pitching a producer, a big Hollywood muckety muck, which of these two storylines would you pitch? Would you pitch the big Krakoa politically deep storyline of mutants versus humanity, or would you pitch, hey, there's two high schools and they each have superpowered kids?
You mean just pitch? Yeah, you would have. Yeah, I think
if you
when you're talking about movies, yes, because you have 2.5 hours to impart information, and the backstories for that politically complex world, you just don't have time to do it. So
the reason why I'm going down this road, sorry, I cut you off. The reason why I'm going down this road, I picked up, out of habit, my books this week. My Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty, number 6. I thought, you know what? I'm going to crack this open and I'm going to read it. I got 4 pages into it. I was so lost and confused and did not know what was going on. And the art is so, I wouldn't say it's substandard, but it's not it's not as good as it used to be. I mean, the covers are great, but have you looked at the interior art of comic books lately?
Yes, it's because I hate to broad brush it, but it's digital art,
and the pay is crap. They're paying these artists crap now.
Yeah. So it's a byproduct of them needing to keep the comics to a reasonable price and crank them out to the volume that they do.
But if I were to go and pick up a copy of X-Men on Wednesday, okay, first of all, which book do I pick up?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you.
And what would happen if I opened it and read it?
You would be lost.
Yeah. I mean, say what you want about the 80s, say what you want about Jim Shooter era, Jeanette Kahn era of DC. You could pick up a book, have some sort of ongoing subplots, that's fine, but you would have a beginning, a middle, and end, an arc, a story. Right.
And, it's not like that. Well, I can't say for all. I mean, pick up a copy of Strange Academy if you want something that's less dense.
I can read it. It makes sense. They're new characters, which helps. There's not 60 years of baggage. But man, I look at Spider-Man now and I'm like, where didn't he used to wear a costume and wisecrack and take on hoodlums? And now he's like multi-dimensional going through portal. How did we get here?
You got 900 reasons why. We're up almost 900 issues in Amazing Spider-Man, and he's done it all. He's been everything, and the writers are looking for new angles to exploit, and I think that means abandoning some of the more simple things and concepts that have been used over and over and over again. Yeah, it's tough. I think you're right. For new characters, it's much easier because there is no backstory.
Right.
For established characters like the X-Men or Spider-Man or the Avengers or any of these larger teams, you got so much history to it that it's difficult to write a story that is self-contained because there's so much assumed knowledge that goes around with that particular character or that title that you can't repeat it every single time. You can't tell every single issue that Peter Parker's uncle died and Aunt May and their relationship and a relationship with all of his friends, and that just has to be assumptions in these stories. And the longer you go with the character, the more assumptions you have to make to tell a story.
But we used to. At the top of every issue had an origin recap, who it was, where he came from.
Yes.
The dialogue was a little. Well, we don't even have thought balloons anymore.
No. We don't. Yeah, we used to have thought balloons on the covers. Word balloons on the covers of books. We don't have that anymore.
We're not allowed to hear what the main character is thinking because it's juvenile. No, this is what you can do. This in comics. You can't do this in movies. You can't do this on TV. It's great to be able to utilize the art form the way it is. Man, am I Abe Simpson yelling at a cloud right now? I
am right there with you. I am right there with you because I remember being able to pick up a new title with no real backstory to it more than I had a general familiarity with the characters in the title. Read an issue, get to a point where I knew what was going on, so that when the next issue came out, I'm right involved and moving forward. That's so much more difficult to do nowadays.
I just feel like we're circling the drain by telling stories for 40-year-olds. And I don't know what the solution is. Apparently what I'm suggesting didn't work because they've tried it several times and it just hasn't gotten any traction. So maybe circling the drain is the way to go.
I think the part of it is there is so much history. Another part of the problem is they're writing books now for the specific intent of advancing the MCU.
Yeah.
Or setting up stories for the MCU. At least Marvel is.
Yeah.
And DC's guilty of it too. How many Black Adam books came out in tie-ins with crossovers with Black Adam in the past year?
I get that because actually those stories are simplified because they're setting up new characters and situations. It's books that have not had any MCU exposure, like X-Men. What are they going to do when they have an X-Men movie? I guarantee you they're going to reboot that book and make it in line with whatever's happening in the X-Men MCU movie.
They have to, because there's no way they're going to be able to say, okay, the X-Men are on an island that's living, that is interconnected across the entire planet with and all these characters can never die because they can always be resurrected. They're never going to be able to take the current storyline and make a movie out of it. It's
whereas
too much baggage.
Here's a school called Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Here's another school called
but Fox did that how many times?
I know, but I don't know. What do you guys think? We jump in. We want to hear from you.
Please.
We can go on like this all night. We need to hear from you guys. I do think, Richard, at the end of the day, I'm still buying comic books.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm buying new comic books anymore. I haven't felt this depressed since Heroes Reborn.
I'm buying new stuff. I'm buying a lot of independents. I shouldn't say independent. Things like Dark Horse.
Yeah.
Or because I find they are more creatively adventurous than Marvel, DC. So yeah, I buy those kinds of things. You know, like 8 Billion Genies was a great
Yeah.
story.
Right.
You know,
And
I
that's
so
the
yeah.
advantage is they're starting from an issue 1. You know, the last time I read Spider-Man,
Hmm.
Brand New Day, that everybody complained about.
That was what 10 years ago now.
At least. But Brand New Day brought me back
Hmm.
because it was like all this dumb stuff we've been doing goes away. Peter Parker is single again, which he should be. Sorry, Mary Jane Watson marriage fans. Peter Parker should never be married, especially to a supermodel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so it brought me back. But then I see Dan Slott, the same writer who did this, is doing things like Spider-Punk. And I'm like, wow. I mean,
Yeah, but
Brand New
he's also
Day.
just assignments, right? I mean, he doesn't get to pick all the time
I
what
know.
he likes.
Brand New Day lasted for what, 4 years before they started a multiverse. It's like, wait, you guys fixed it. Why are you messing it up again? You fixed it. Watch all the Mary Jane fans come at me now. All right, everybody. That is going to wrap it up for this week. Richard, remind everybody where they can find us, please.
On Instagram and Facebook, you can find us at Bronze and Modern Gods or the website bronzeandmoderngods.com.
If you like this video and you don't think we were too grumpy this week, please hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. We love you for it, and we will catch you next time.
Everybody stay safe.